There's something particularly cruel about wedding invitations on expensive cream cardstock. The way they arrive in your mailbox, all elegant calligraphy and promises of champagne toasts, demanding your presence at the ceremonial theft of everything you once loved. I stared at the invitation in my hands, the gold foil catching the afternoon light streaming through my kitchen window. My fingers traced the embossed names, feeling each curve and line like a knife to my chest. James Bennet and Victoria Chambers. Request the honor of your presence as they join in matrimony. Victoria. My best friend since college. The woman who held my hair back after too many tequila shots on my 21st birthday. The same woman who, 4 months ago, had sat across from me at our favorite coffee shop and said with perfect conviction, "Morgan, you need to break up with James. He's completely wrong for you." And now, she was marrying him. The worst part? I had listened to her. My phone buzzed on the counter, a message lighting up the screen. "Did you get it? Please say you'll come. It would mean everything to have you there. Vic." A hysterical laugh escaped my throat. She couldn't possibly be serious. But Victoria Chambers had always been serious about getting exactly what she wanted. I dropped the invitation as if it had burned me and reached for the bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. If this didn't qualify as a moment needing alcohol, I didn't know what did. As the rich Cabernet filled my glass, I thought back to that fateful conversation, trying to pinpoint the exact moment my life had derailed. "He's holding you back, Morgan," Victoria had said, stirring her latte with practiced precision. Her sleek blonde hair was pulled into a perfect low ponytail, not a strand out of place. Unlike my own unruly waves, which I'd hastily tied up that morning. "That's not true," I protested, defensive despite the seed of doubt she was expertly planting. "James supports my writing. He was the one who encouraged me to quit the marketing job I hated." Victoria's perfectly arched eyebrow rose skeptically. "Yes, and now you're struggling to make rent while he's comfortable with his trust fund. That's not a partnership, Morgan. That's you sacrificing while he plays at being an adult." I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. James did have family money, something Victoria had never let me forget, but he worked hard at his nonprofit. It wasn't like he flaunted his wealth or used it irresponsibly. "He loves me," I said quietly. Victoria reached across the table, her manicured hand covering mine in a gesture that felt both comforting and somehow proprietary. "Of course he does, sweetie. But is love enough? You deserve someone who challenges you, who exists on your level intellectually." She squeezed my hand. "I'm only saying this because I care about you. As your best friend, it's my job to be honest when you're making a mistake." I looked down at our hands, hers so perfectly maintained, mine with chipped nail polish and ink stains from my latest writing project. Victoria had always been the polished one between us, the one with the 5-year plan and the designer wardrobe. I was the creative disaster she'd taken under her wing in Literature 101, declaring that I had potential if only I'd let her help me. And I had let her. For 8 years, I'd let Victoria guide major decisions in my life, trusting her judgment over my own more times than I could count. When she spoke with that confident, assured tone, it was hard not to believe she knew best. "You really think we're not right for each other?" I asked, my voice small. Victoria's expression softened into something like pity. "I think you're settling, Morgan. And I can't bear to watch you do that to yourself." That night, I'd broken up with James in his apartment. He had stared at me in shocked silence as I regurgitated Victoria's arguments like they were my own. When I finished, his face had crumpled in confusion. Where is this coming from, Morgan? Last weekend you were talking about us moving in together, and now suddenly I'm not challenging you enough? He ran a hand through his dark hair, his green eyes searching mine. This doesn't sound like you. Maybe you don't know me as well as you think, I'd said, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. Or maybe someone else put these ideas in your head. His jaw tightened. Victoria? I'd bristled at his accusation, defensive on behalf of my friend. This is about us, not Victoria. She just helped me see what I was ignoring. James had laughed then, a bitter sound I'd never heard from him before. Of course she did. Victoria's always known what's best for you, hasn't she? Better than you know yourself. His words had stung with their accuracy, but I was already committed to the path. Victoria wouldn't have steered me wrong, not about something this important. I'm sorry, I'd said, gathering my things. I think we want different things. He hadn't tried to stop me. That was the part that haunted me now, as I stared at their wedding invitation. He had let me walk away without a fight, and straight into Victoria's carefully laid trap. I was halfway through my second glass of wine when my phone rang. Victoria's name flashed on the screen, and I briefly considered ignoring it. But the same morbid curiosity that makes people slow down to look at car accidents had me answering. Hello, Victoria, I said, aiming for neutral but landing somewhere between frigid and homicidal. Morgan. Her voice was bright, excited. Did you get our invitation? Isn't it gorgeous? The paper is hand-pressed in Italy. I took a long sip of wine. Yes, I got it. Congratulations. That was fast. A delicate laugh. When you know, you know. James and I just connected after you two split. It was the most unexpected thing. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. Unexpected. Right. So you'll come, won't you? It's small, only 60 people, but I couldn't imagine getting married without my best friend there. The audacity was breathtaking. I pressed the phone harder against my ear, wondering if I'd misheard her. You want me to come to your wedding? To James. The man you convinced me to break up with 4 months ago because he wasn't good enough for me. A pause. Morgan, I know it seems fast. Fast? I interrupted, my voice rising. Victoria, it's not the timing I'm struggling with. It's the fact that you're marrying the man you explicitly told me was wrong for me. Don't you see how fucked up that is? Language, Morgan, she chided, as if we were still in college and she was coaching me on how to impress her sophisticated friends. I never said James wasn't a wonderful person. I just said he wasn't right for you. And I meant that. And he's right for you? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Completely. Her tone was serene, confident. James needs someone who understands his world, his ambitions. We're aligned in ways that you and he never were. I clutched my wineglass so hard I was afraid it might shatter. You planned this, didn't you? You wanted him for yourself. Don't be dramatic, Victoria replied, an edge creeping into her voice. I was trying to help you. The fact that James and I found each other afterward was serendipity. Serendipity. Of course she would use a word like that to dress up her betrayal. I can't do this, I said, suddenly exhausted. I can't listen to you justify this. Morgan, please. No, Victoria. I won't be coming to your wedding. I won't be celebrating this, whatever this is. Find yourself another maid of honor. I hung up before she could respond, then turned off my phone entirely. The silence in my apartment felt heavy, oppressive. I needed to get out. 20 minutes later, I was sitting at the bar of O'Malley's, the dive around the corner from my apartment. It wasn't my usual scene. Victoria would have never been caught dead in a place with peanut shells on the floor and sports memorabilia on the walls, which made it perfect. "Rough day?" the bartender asked, sliding a whiskey neat in front of me. "Rough life," I corrected, taking a grateful sip. The liquor burned pleasantly down my throat. "My best friend is marrying my ex-boyfriend. The one she convinced me to dump because he wasn't good enough for me." The bartender let out a low whistle. "That's cold." "The best part? She wants me to be in the wedding." I laughed humorlessly. As if I'd stand there in some hideous bridesmaid dress and watch them pledge eternal love. "Some friend," he commented, wiping down the bar. "What are you going to do?" I stared into my glass, searching for answers in the amber liquid. "I have no idea." "If you want my advice," he said, leaning in conspiratorially, "the best revenge is living well. Show up looking smoking hot, act like you couldn't care less, and then leave with the hottest groomsmen." I snorted. "Speaking from experience?" He grinned. "Maybe. I'm Aiden, by the way." "Morgan," I replied, accepting his offered hand. His grip was firm, warm. "Unfortunately, I don't think I'm mature enough for the living well approach. Right now, I'm leaning toward arson." Aiden laughed, a rich sound that momentarily lightened the weight on my chest. "Well, Morgan, leaning toward arson, how about another drink? On the house. Consider it a contribution to your bail fund." I found myself smiling for the first time that day. I won't say no to that. 3 drinks later, I was spilling the entire sordid tale to Aiden during a lull in customers. How Victoria had been the dominant force in our friendship since college. How she'd always positioned herself as my mentor rather than my equal. How she'd systematically criticized every boyfriend I'd ever had, until she wanted one for herself, apparently. "She sounds like a nightmare," Aiden remarked, bringing me a glass of water. "Why have you stayed friends with her for so long?" It was a fair question, and one I'd never really examined. "She can be incredibly generous when she wants to be. She helped me get my first job after college. Introduced me to her publishing contacts when I started writing. She's not all bad. Just manipulative, controlling, and apparently willing to steal your boyfriend." Put that way, it did sound ridiculous that I'd maintained the friendship. I guess I always believed she had my best interests at heart. Even when it didn't feel that way. Aiden studied me, his blue eyes surprisingly perceptive. "People who truly have your best interests at heart don't make you doubt yourself all the time, Morgan." His words hit me with unexpected force. Had Victoria ever truly supported me without also undercutting my confidence? I tried to recall an instance and came up empty. "I should get home," I said suddenly, the realization making me unsteady in a way the alcohol hadn't. "What do I owe you?" Aiden waved away my attempt to pay. "Like I said, on the house. Consider it a down payment on hearing how this all turns out." I managed a weak smile. "You think there's a satisfying ending to this story?" "I think," he said seriously, "that depends entirely on you." I woke the next morning with a pounding headache and 12 missed calls from Victoria. I ignored them all and shuffled to my kitchen for coffee, where the wedding invitation still lay on the counter, mocking me. In the harsh light of day, the magnitude of Victoria's betrayal was even clearer. This wasn't just about James, although that hurt deeply. This was about years of subtle manipulation, of Victoria positioning herself as the director of my life while casting me as a supporting character. And I had let her. I tossed the invitation into the trash and opened my laptop. If I was going to process this, I needed to write. As words poured onto the page, a story began to take shape, a fictional account of a friendship corrupted by jealousy and control. The protagonist, a woman who slowly realizes she's been manipulated by someone she trusted implicitly. It wasn't subtle, but it was cathartic. 3 hours later, I had 20 pages and a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I looked at what I'd written, raw, honest, and more compelling than anything I'd produced in months. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Aiden from O'Malley's. Hope you don't mind, I got your number from your tab. Just checking in to make sure you're okay today." I hesitated before responding. Still alive. Nursing a headache and my wounded pride. "How did you get my number?" "You put it on your credit card slip when you insisted on leaving a tip, even though I told you not to." Sorry if it's weird that I texted. I found myself smiling despite everything. Not weird. Kind of nice, actually. Before I could overthink it, I added, "I'm going back to O'Malley's tonight if you're working." I could use the distraction. His response came quickly. "I'll be there." First drink still on me. I set my phone down, feeling a small spark of something. Not happiness, exactly, but possibility. A reminder that my life didn't revolve around Victoria's orbit, no matter how long I'd been trapped there. My phone rang again, Victoria, for the 13th time. This time, I answered. "What do you want, Victoria?" I asked, my voice flat. "Finally. Morgan, we need to talk about this like adults." I laughed, a hollow sound. "Fine. Let's be adults. You betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. You manipulated me into breaking up with someone I loved, then swooped in and took him for yourself. What part of that should we discuss like adults?" "You're being melodramatic," Victoria said, her tone shifting to the condescending one she used when she thought I was being unreasonable. "James and I didn't plan this. It just happened. Things don't just happen with you, Victoria. Everything you do is calculated. You wanted James, so you made sure I broke up with him." "That's not." "Save it," I interrupted. "I don't want to hear your justifications. What I want to know is why. Why him? Of all the men in this city, why did you have to take mine?" The silence stretched between us. "Because he chose you first," she finally said, so quietly I almost missed it. I blinked, caught off guard by her honesty. "What?" "James. He chose you. Not me." Victoria's voice had lost its polished edge. "We met first, you know. At that gallery opening I brought you to. I introduced you. I remembered the night. Victoria had invited me to an exhibition featuring an artist friend of hers. She'd introduced me to several people, including James. We'd hit it off immediately, talking for hours while Victoria circulated through the crowd. "I didn't know," I said, though a part of me wasn't entirely surprised. Victoria had been strangely insistent about me attending that opening. "Of course you didn't," she replied, bitterness creeping into her voice. "You never noticed how hard I worked to orchestrate opportunities for myself. You just stumbled into everything, jobs, relationships, without even trying. Do you have any idea how infuriating that is?" The revelation left me speechless. All this time, beneath Victoria's seemingly generous friendship, she'd been, what? Jealous? Resentful? So this is revenge? I finally managed. For something I didn't even know I'd done? It's not revenge, Morgan. It's correcting the balance. Her voice hardened. James and I make sense together. We come from the same world, understand the same social codes. You never fit into that part of his life, and you know it. The words struck deeper than I wanted to admit. It was true that I'd often felt out of place at the society functions James occasionally had to attend. Victoria, with her country club upbringing, would navigate those waters effortlessly. If that's true, I said slowly, then why did you wait until we broke up? Why not pursue him openly? Because he was in love with you. Victoria snapped. He wouldn't even look at anyone else while you were together. I had to create an opportunity. The calculated cruelty of it took my breath away. You deliberately sabotaged my relationship. I helped you avoid wasting more time in a relationship that wasn't right for you, she corrected, her composure returning. The fact that it worked out well for me too is just efficient. I closed my eyes, suddenly exhausted by her twisted logic. You know what, Victoria? You and James deserve each other. I hope you'll be very happy together. We will be, she said, confidence restored. And Morgan? I meant what I said. I still want you at the wedding. Despite everything, you're my oldest friend. I'm not your friend, I said with sudden clarity. I'm not sure I ever was. Friends don't do what you did. I hung up, a strange calm settling over me. The hurt was still there, but alongside it was something unexpected, relief. Like I'd been carrying a weight for years without realizing it, and it had finally been lifted. I returned to my laptop and continued writing, the words flowing more freely than ever. O'Malley's was busier that night, but Aidan spotted me the moment I walked in. He gestured to a seat at the corner of the bar that he'd apparently been saving with a reserved sign. You came back, he said, smiling as he set a whiskey in front of me. I said I would. I took a sip, appreciating the burn. Thanks for checking on me today. No problem. Did your friend call again? I nodded. 13 times, actually. I finally answered. Aidan raised an eyebrow as he mixed a drink for another customer. And I learned that our entire friendship has been built on her resentment of me. I shook my head, still processing the revelation. Apparently, she introduced me to James hoping he'd reject me in favor of her. When he didn't, she had to engineer our breakup so she could have him. That's pathological, Aidan said, returning to my end of the bar. That's Victoria. I took another sip of whiskey. The worst part is, a small part of me still wants her approval. How messed up is that? Aidan considered this. Not that messed up, actually. Long-term relationships, even toxic ones, create patterns that are hard to break. Especially when they start young. I studied him with newfound interest. You sound like you've given this some thought. Psychology minor, he admitted with a shrug. Plus, I've spent 10 years bartending. You learn a lot about human nature. So what's your professional diagnosis, bartender psychologist? He leaned on the bar, bringing his face closer to mine. I think you're at a crossroads. You can either let Victoria's betrayal define your next chapter, or you can use it as a catalyst to reclaim your life. I blinked, surprised by his insight. That's actually profound. I have my moments. He grinned. So, which path are you choosing? I thought about the pages I'd written that day, the most honest work I'd produced in years. I think I'm already choosing. I started writing again. Really writing, not the sanitized stuff Victoria always encouraged. That's great. What's it about? A toxic friendship. I smiled wryly. Not very subtle, I know. Sometimes the best art comes from our rawest emotions, Aiden said. Writing can be incredibly healing. That's what I'm hoping. I finished my drink. Although I'm still not ruling out crashing their wedding and giving the most passive-aggressive toast in history. Aiden laughed. I'd pay good money to see that. He hesitated, then added, or, I could be your +1. For moral support. The offer caught me off guard. You'd willingly attend a stranger's wedding just to watch me get revenge? Not just for the revenge, he said, his eyes meeting mine. Though I admit, that's a compelling bonus. The implication hung between us, unexpected but not unwelcome. Before I could respond, he was called away to serve other customers. I watched him work, noting the easy way he chatted with patrons, the efficiency of his movements. When he returned, I found myself asking, "Why are you being so nice to me? You don't even know me." Aiden's expression turned thoughtful. Let's just say I recognize something in you. A kind of resilience beneath the hurt. It's interesting. Interesting, I repeated. That's a diplomatic way of saying train wreck. Not at all. His eyes held mine. I think you're someone who's been living in another person's shadow for so long that you've forgotten how bright your own light is. The assessment was so accurate it left me momentarily speechless. My shift ends at midnight, he said, breaking the silence. If you stick around, maybe we can grab late-night breakfast at the diner across the street. I considered the offer. A month ago, I might have declined, worried about what Victoria would think of me having breakfast with a bartender. Now, the thought merely made me smile. I'd like that, I said. The next few weeks unfolded in a blur of writing and quiet rebellion. I poured myself into my manuscript, channeling all my hurt and anger into the story. Pages accumulated, a narrative taking shape that felt more authentic than anything I'd written before. Victoria continued to call and text, her messages oscillating between apologetic and demanding. I responded to none of them, focusing instead on reclaiming the parts of myself I'd surrendered to our friendship over the years. I dyed my hair a shade Victoria had once deemed too harsh for my complexion. I took a weekend pottery class I'd always been interested in but had avoided because Victoria thought it was pedestrian. Small acts of independence that collectively felt like breathing fresh air after years underwater. And then there was Aiden. What had started as late-night breakfast after his shift had evolved into regular dates, movies, walks along the riverfront, cooking dinner at my place. He was easy to be with, lacking the constant judgment I'd grown accustomed to from Victoria. He listened when I spoke, really listened, without calculating how my experiences related to his own agenda. It was during one of these evenings, as we sat on my balcony sharing a bottle of wine, that the subject of the wedding arose again. So, the big day is coming up, Aiden said cautiously. Next weekend, right? I nodded, tracing the rim of my glass. Saturday. Have you decided what you're going to do? I had been avoiding thinking about it, focusing instead on my writing and my newfound freedom. But the date loomed, impossible to ignore entirely. I'm not going, I said firmly. I can't sit there and watch them exchange vows, knowing how it all came about. Aiden nodded, understanding. That's fair. But part of me wishes I could show them that they didn't break me, I admitted. That I'm better off without both of them in my life. You are, Aiden said softly. Better off. I looked at him, this man who had somehow walked into my life at exactly the right moment. I'm starting to believe that. He leaned forward, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. For what it's worth, I think you're incredible, Morgan Reed. With or without their validation. His words warmed something inside me that had been cold for too long. I leaned into his touch, the decision crystallizing in my mind. Maybe I should go, I said suddenly. Not to cause a scene or get revenge. But to close that chapter properly. To look them both in the eye and let them see that I'm moving forward without them. Aiden's eyes searched mine. Are you sure that's what you want? I think it is. I took a deep breath. And I'd like you to come with me. If you're still offering to be my plus one. His smile was answer enough. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, as if the universe itself was conspiring to give Victoria the perfect backdrop for her triumph. I stood in front of my mirror, smoothing down the midnight blue dress I'd chosen for the occasion, elegant without trying too hard, striking without being inappropriate. Aiden arrived promptly, looking handsome in a charcoal suit. His eyes widened appreciatively when I opened the door. You look stunning, he said simply. For the first time in weeks, I felt genuinely confident. Ready to witness the social event of the season? Ready if you are. He offered his arm. Just remember, we can leave any time you want. The ceremony was being held at the Botanical Gardens, a venue I had once casually mentioned to James as my dream wedding location. Another twist of the knife that I tried not to dwell on as Aiden and I found seats near the back. The garden was transformed, white roses and orchids cascading over every surface, crystal chandeliers somehow suspended from tree branches. It was beautiful in a deliberately ostentatious way that screamed Victoria's influence. Guests around us murmured in appreciation, many casting curious glances our way. I recognized faces from my past, mutual friends, James's family members, Victoria's social circle. Some looked surprised to see me, others vaguely uncomfortable. I held my head high, Aiden's reassuring presence beside me a balm to my nerves. The music began, a string quartet playing a classical piece I didn't recognize. The wedding party processed down the aisle, groomsmen in traditional black tuxedos, bridesmaids in pale pink gowns that would have made me look like a corpse but suited Victoria's carefully selected friends perfectly. Then came James, handsome and solemn in his tuxedo. Our eyes met briefly as he took his place at the altar. His expression flickered with something, regret? Guilt? It was gone too quickly to interpret. The music changed, and everyone stood as Victoria appeared at the end of the aisle. She was breathtaking, of course, her gown a custom creation of silk and lace, her blonde hair arranged in an intricate updo beneath a cathedral veil. As she glided past our row, her eyes found mine. For a split second, her perfect composure faltered. I saw a flash of, not guilt, exactly, but something like uncertainty, before her mask of bridal serenity returned. I felt Aiden's hand squeeze mine gently, grounding me as the ceremony began. The vows were personal, heartfelt even. Listening to James' promise to cherish Victoria for all his days, I waited for the expected surge of pain. But what I felt instead was a curious sort of peace. They were welcome to each other, her manipulation and his malleability. Whatever they built together would be founded on deceit, a foundation that would eventually crumble under its own weight. After the ceremony, as guests filtered toward the reception, I felt a hand on my arm. I turned to find James standing there, his expression tense. You came, he said, sounding genuinely surprised. Victoria said you wouldn't. I'm full of surprises, I replied evenly. His eyes darted to Aiden, who stood protectively at my side. I see that. Congratulations, James. I meant it to sound sincere, but a hint of irony crept in. I hope you got what you wanted. He flinched slightly. Morgan. I never meant to hurt you. And yet. I smiled tightly. Funny how that worked out. Before he could respond, Victoria appeared, her hand possessively claiming his arm. Her perfect smile was firmly in place, though her eyes were sharp as they assessed Aiden. Morgan. You made it after all. Her gaze slid to Aiden. And brought a friend. Aiden Davis, he introduced himself, offering his hand. Congratulations on your wedding. Victoria shook his hand briefly, her attention already returning to me. I'm so glad you came, Morgan. It wouldn't have been the same without you. The sincerity in her voice was either a masterful performance or a glimpse of the person I had once called my best friend. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. I wouldn't have missed it, I said. It was important for me to be here. To see this for myself. Something passed between us, an acknowledgement, perhaps, of everything that had led to this moment. The friendship that had defined us both for so long, now irrevocably altered. We should mingle, James said uncomfortably. People are waiting to congratulate us. Victoria hesitated, then nodded. Of course. She looked at me one last time. Save me a dance, Morgan? The request was so normal, so reminiscent of countless other social events we'd attended together, that it momentarily threw me. But this wasn't a normal day, and we weren't those people anymore. I think we've done enough dancing around each other, I said quietly. Goodbye, Victoria. I took Aiden's hand and walked away, not looking back at the couple who had, in very different ways, shaped the last chapter of my life. Are you okay? Aiden asked as we reached the reception area. I considered the question carefully. Yes, I realized, somewhat surprised. I am. Do you want to stay? We could have one drink, make a proper appearance. I shook my head. No. I've seen what I needed to see. I looked up at him, feeling lighter than I had in months. Let's go somewhere else. Anywhere else. His smile was warm, genuine. I know just the place. 2 hours later, we were sitting on a blanket in a quiet corner of the city park, shoes off, sharing a picnic that Aiden had somehow arranged without my knowledge. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows across our impromptu feast. You planned this, I accused, accepting a glass of wine. I may have prepared for multiple scenarios, he admitted with a grin. Including the possibility that you might not want to spend your afternoon watching your ex-boyfriend and ex-best friend feed each other cake. I laughed, the sound unburdened by the weight I'd been carrying for so long. You're surprisingly thoughtful for someone I met in a dive bar. And you're surprisingly resilient for someone who had her life turned upside down. His expression turned serious. I mean it, Morgan. Most people would have crumbled under that kind of betrayal. I thought about the manuscript waiting on my laptop, now nearly complete, a story of betrayal but also of rediscovery. Of a woman finding her voice after years of having it muted by someone she trusted. I almost did crumble, I admitted. But then I started writing. And talking to you. I didn't do anything, Aiden demurred. I just listened. Sometimes that's enough. I raised my glass. To new beginnings, however they find us. As we clinked glasses, my phone buzzed with a text. I hesitated, then checked it, a reflex I couldn't quite break. It was from Victoria. Attached was a photo of her and James at the altar, looking picture perfect. The message read, "I wish you had stayed. Despite everything, you're still part of our story." I stared at the message, struck by her choice of words. Our story. As if I were a character in a narrative she was writing, rather than the author of my own life. I put the phone away without responding. Victoria would always see the world through the lens of her own desires, her own ambitions. But I was no longer bound by her perspective. "Everything okay?" Aiden asked, noticing my expression. I smiled, genuine and unforced. "Better than okay," I assured him, the weight of Victoria's influence finally, completely lifted. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." And for the first time in years, I truly believed it.